So good afternoon, everyone. Today we have Kohei Nakajima from University of Tokyo. He's doing some research at the interface between machine learning, biology, physics, materials, and nonlinear dynamics, trying to implement some of those networks model into physical substrates. Very nice research. Part of the AI Center at University of Tokyo. He did his PhD in University of Tokyo, graduated in 2009, and then started like a postdoc at ETH in Zurich, in the group of Rod Pfeiffer, working on soft computing, among other things. And then came back to University of Tokyo in 2013, when he's now part of the AI Center and professors there. So without further ado, please welcome Kohei for like an exciting talk. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the introduction. So, and also thank you very much for inviting me to this exciting lecture series. So I'm Kohei Nakajima from the University of Tokyo. And today I would like to talk about physical reservoir computing and its relevance to embodied intelligence. So basically, today I would like to introduce the concept of physical reservoir computing. And also, especially I would like to illustrate the potential flexibility of this framework. And to do this, I would like to show many examples from soft robotics. Okay, so you can see this video, right? Yeah, so this video shows the behavior of a soft robotic arm inspired by Octopus. And as you know, it shows diverse body dynamics. But actually this one I picked up from the Octopus robot, one arm. And then right now, the base part is actuated by motor. And all the thing is passively showing the passive dynamics. And it's made of silicon. And today, I would like to argue that this soft body dynamics can be used as a computational device. And to do this, we use the framework of physical reservoir computing. And in this stage, I assume that we have lots of questions. So at first, why is it possible to use this kind of natural physical dynamics as a computational resource? And to understand this first question, we need to understand the concept of the original concept of reservoir computing. So today I would like to briefly overview the main points of this framework, the original concept of reservoir computing. And the second point is—
Are there any actuators in this besides the motor at the base?
Right now, it's only the base part is actuated. So yeah, so we have passive dynamics, and this part is only actuated. But it embeds 10 bending sensors inside. So we can monitor the body dynamics in real time. Okay, then the second point is that, so as you know, this arm, as I explained, this arm is picked up from the Octopus robot. So this arm is not made for computation in the first place. So this suggests some flexibility of this framework. So physical reservoir computing allows us to exploit some natural physical dynamics, which is not made for computation. Then the next question is, what is it good for? And to answer this question, we need to understand the concept of embodiment in robotics. So today I would like to briefly explain these two concepts. First one is the original concept of reservoir computing. And the second one is the concept of embodiment. And then move on to the introduction of physical reservoir computing. Any question? It's okay. Okay, so I would like to start from the concept of reservoir computing. Okay. So, but I assume that maybe all the members already know about the basics of reservoir computing. So I only check the main points for this concept. So simply saying reservoir computing is the framework for recurrent neural network training. And as you know, conventionally to train recurrent neural network, we use backpropagation through time method and tune all the weights inside the network. But in the reservoir computing approach, we don't do that. We only adjust the readout part. And we prepare huge amount of nonlinear computation nodes coupled randomly in the middle part. And this part is called reservoir. And it forms high dimensional nonlinear dynamical system. And we don't tune the weights inside this reservoir part. And also we have input is injected to this high dimensional dynamical system, but these input weights are also not tuned usually. So because we only adjust this, this part can be, so today I only focus on the linear readout, static readout, but of course, in this framework, we can attach lots of different types of network in the readout part. But today I only focus on the simplest case. So we use linear weights as a readout. So because of this system construction, learning is fast and stable. And the point is, as you can see from this system construction, so the main point is, the computational power of the system depends on the nonlinearity and memory of this reservoir dynamics. This is the main point. And as always, we have typical system constructions, open loop setting and closed loop setting for the reservoir computing. And both setting appears in this presentation. So I'll briefly overview this setting. So in the open loop case, we have input-driven dynamics of the reservoir. And by using the response of the reservoir, we tune the readout part, psi, and try to generate the output. So we can emulate some input-driven dynamical system by using open loop. And interesting point here is that because we are not using backpropagation and tuning the readout, the recurrent neural network part, we can attach multiple readouts against this identical input. And there's no interference because we are not tuning this part. So we can safely implement multitasking. And there's no catastrophic forgetting in this set. This is interesting point. And in the open loop case, just like in the closed loop case, just like in the open loop, we have input-driven dynamics. And by using the response of the reservoir, by tuning psi, we generate output, but this output is fed back as a next input. So by using this closed loop setting, we can embed some autonomous dynamical system. And to train this closed loop setting, usually we just, in the training phase, we just cut off this feedback loop. And just like the open loop case, we train the readout part by injecting. So we have the target dynamical system, for example, and you inject the response of that dynamical system. And then this reservoir tries to predict the next state. And for the training, we adjust this readout part. And then in the testing phase, we close the loop and check whether the target dynamical system was embedded or not. And also there's the online learning scheme called forced learning or innate training. And in that case, we use recursive least square for the training of the readout. These are the basic settings. And it is demonstrated that in the closed loop setting, we can emulate chaotic attractors like Mackey-Glass attractor or Lorentz attractor. And recently, it has been shown that these spatial temporal chaos can be also emulated by using this coupled echo-state network. Okay. And there's a prerequisite to make a successful reservoir, and it is about the reproducibility of the response. And usually, to implement some reliable computation into the system, we need to guarantee the reproducibility of the response. So, when you inject some identical input, the system should always respond the same. Otherwise, we cannot guarantee the reproducible, reliable computation. So in the reservoir computing scheme, we also need to have this kind of guarantee. And this one is related to the concept of echo-state property. So let's summarize what is going on in reservoir computing. So as I explained, reservoir computing is basically the framework for recurrent neural network. And the task for recurrent neural network can be summarized like this. So basically, a recurrent neural network wants the target function of recurrent neural network is to emulate this kind of function that takes previous input series as input. We want to emulate this kind of function G. And in the reservoir computing, we have input-driven dynamical system, and we adjust this readout part psi and try to generate the output. And we want to emulate this G by using this system. And as you know, because we are using the dynamical system, high-dimensional dynamical system as a computational device in this case, we need to, as you know, the dynamical system's behavior usually depends on the initial condition. And to guarantee the reproducible response, so it means that when you inject the input seeds to this dynamical system, this system should always respond the same. And this property is called common signal-induced synchronization in nonlinear dynamics field. So basically, you prepare two identical reservoir, and you start this reservoir from different initial conditions. And when you inject the same input series, then this system should show the same response. So these two systems should completely synchronize. And this property is called common signal-induced synchronization. And we can characterize this system by checking the negative conditional Lyapunov exponent. And in reservoir computing community, this property in reservoir computing, this property is called echo-state property. So echo-state property suggests that the state should be the function of the previous input only. And if you put this term here, so this phi is called echo function, and this is determined when you determine the reservoir, and this part is fixed. So we can say that this one is an intrinsic property of the reservoir that you prepared beforehand. And by using this phi, and by adjusting this psi, the readout part, we want to emulate this G. This is the framework of reservoir computing. Okay, so let's see some example. So this is the example from bio-inspired robotics. And in bio-inspired robotics, we have lots of robots like this. So here, I show some robots, the salamander robots proposed in this paper. And these robots are usually controlled by using dynamical system. And here, what we want to do here is to control the locomotion pattern of this robot. And it has lots of joints. And these joints are controlled by using these nonlinear oscillators. And by designing this coupling nicely, we want to emulate the realistic locomotion pattern of animals, like walking locomotion and swimming locomotion. And it's also better that we can switch this locomotion style according to the environmental condition. So if this robot is behaving in the ground, then it has some specific locomotion style as walking. And if this robot is going to the water, then it should swim. So we want to switch this locomotion style also. So by using reservoir computing approach, we can design these kind of things. So this is the setting of the reservoir computer that I want to show. And this time we use the continuous equal state network, but the concept is basically the same. And this time we prepare equal state network, continuous equal state network. And we have two settings simultaneously, this closed loop setting and also the open loop setting. So what we want to do here is, as I explained in the previous slide, we want to embed some oscillatory pattern by tuning this readout weight. And also, according to the external input, we want to switch the oscillatory pattern. So this is the example. So we have reservoir, and we want to switch these oscillator patterns ABC according to the externally provided input. So when we provide input A, then this reservoir should output this corresponding oscillatory pattern A. And we only adjust this readout part. So let's see some example. So there's no input right now. We provide input A, then it shows some oscillator pattern A, B, corresponding oscillatory pattern B, C, and corresponding oscillatory pattern C. So this kind of control is very easily handled by using reservoir computing. So the message here is, so the reservoir computing approach provides us the high operability to harness this kind of complex dynamics for our computation purpose. So let's see more complicated case. So in the previous case, experimenter injected some input. And according to this input, this reservoir should provide some corresponding oscillatory patterns. But of course, this part can be also internalized. So this part can be also designed. How to switch the attractors can be also designed by using this readout also. So this switching can be, so by training this readout part and by designing how to switch this ABC, experimenter does not have to externally provide these commands, but this reservoir can autonomously provide this input with a closed loop manner. And here there's lots of tricks going on in detail, but please check this paper for details. But the main point is that these external commands can be also internalized by using this complex dynamics of the reservoir. Let's see some example. So at first, we implemented these oscillatory patterns for each corresponding input. And this input is also controlled by using the same reservoir. This shows the typical reservoir dynamics. and we can nicely design the switching of the attractors. We can also implement, this case is we implemented 10 oscillatory patterns to one reservoir. As you can see, we can also nicely switch all these 10 embedded oscillatory patterns. And this example illustrates that we can also design the context-dependent switching. Yes. Okay, so the message here is also the same. So reservoir computing approach provides us to harness this complex dynamics for our computational purpose. And the tuning part is very low dimensional. We only tune the readout part and exploit the natural dynamics, natural complex dynamics for our computational purpose. That's the message. Okay, so I would like to move on to the next concept, the concept of embodiment. So this diagram summarizes the concept of embodiment. So to understand the behavior control of animals or robots, we tend to focus on controller, but the concept of embodiment suggests that it's important to understand the dynamic coupling between controller, body, and environment. And we should not only focus on this controller part. And let's see some extreme example to illustrate the importance of this concept. So this is the famous example called passive dynamic walker. And as you can see, this robot walks extremely naturally. But astonishingly, this robot does not have controller. It has a well-designed body and well-designed environment. And by using this physical law, it walks naturally. And some researcher thinks that this morphology itself is already computing something. And this concept is called morphological computation. But anyway, we can see that some functionality, some computation or control can be partially outsourced to the physical body when we design this physical system nicely. That's the message. And this property is not only for these robots, but we can find lots of examples in animal worlds. So here, this is also the very famous example. It's a dead trout experiment. So we put dead fish inside a water tank and we generate the flow. And here we have cylinder in front of this dead fish. So it generates some vortex called Kalman vortex. And by using the interaction between this physical body and this vortex, it generates this kind of natural swimming motion. And in this case also, because this fish is dead, it means that the brain is not functioning. But by using this material property of the body, this morphology of the body, and interaction with the environment, we can outsource the control to partially outsource the control to the physical body. Okay, so so far we overviewed the concept of reservoir computing. We checked that reservoir computing can be used to harness the complex dynamics for our computational purpose. And also we saw that embodiment can allow us to outsource partially the computation to the physical body. Then we would like to show the example from soft robots. So recently, there are lots of soft robots developed worldwide. And basically, because body is soft, it is so many researchers are interested in soft robots because, for example, when you use rigid body, then when you make interaction with a human, like there's lots of cases for human-robot interaction. In that case, if you have soft robot, it's very good because it won't damage people. So some researchers are thinking to use these soft robots for rescue purpose, or can be used for biomedical application. So this mechanical softness is now providing lots of positive aspects. But of course, there's lots of difficulty in this framework, in this soft robotics. So one of the difficulties, the control. Soft robots are difficult to control. And the reason is that because we are incorporating soft materials, the dimensionality of the body increases. And also it shows diverse body dynamics. And this dynamics includes non-linearity and memory usually. But as we saw in the reservoir computing approach, this non-linearity and memory in the body, in the dynamics, can be used positively. It can increase the computation power of the system. So the bad point of soft robot control is somehow a good point of reservoir computing. So we came up with this kind of idea. So why not use this diverse soft body dynamics as a computation resource, as a reservoir? So the left diagram is the conventional reservoir computing approach. So we have reservoir, high-dimensional nonlinear dynamical system. And if we have a sufficient nonlinearity in memory, then the experimenter only needs to tune this readout part, and we can induce the required computation in the reservoir. Just like the conventional reservoir computing, we provide motor command as input to this soft robotic arm, and you generate these passive body dynamics, and you monitor this passive body dynamics by using these embedded sensors, and then you tune the readout weights attached to this sensory reading, and you use this body dynamics for your computation purpose. So the interesting point here is that usually these kind of reservoir is driven inside your PC using some software, the algorithm. But in this framework, we can outsource this algorithm to the natural dynamics, natural physical dynamics. And we let this physical dynamics compute something, and then we use the result of this physical dynamics and adjust the readout part and use this body dynamics for our computation purpose. And as a roboticist, there's another interesting point. So as we saw earlier, there's a control. So it's interesting if we can implement, for example, those central pattern generator like oscillatory patterns. But in this case, because if we could use this body as a recurrent in your network, a reservoir, then by incorporating this feedback loop, we can embed some closed loop control. So it means that the current body dynamics controls the next body motion. So we can potentially bypass the external computer, and we can only adjust this feedback loop. And I have been constantly demonstrating that this concept works. And today I would like to show some example. So this is the physical platform I'm using. So it embeds bending sensor, 10 bending sensors, 5 bending sensors in this side, and another 5 in the other side. So it embeds 10 bending sensors. And we only have one motor in the base part. And we can monitor the body dynamics bend of each. We can monitor this local bend in real time. Okay, then so the motor command is the input, and this time, of course, there are lots of settings, but this time I only adjust adopt the binary input setting. So we have 0 or 1 binaries, and also if we inject input 0, then it means that the motor should rotate toward this end, right hand side. And if we inject input 1, then this motor should rotate toward the left-hand side. This is the motor input. And at first, we want to evaluate whether this arm can be used as a recurrent neural network. So to do this, to evaluate this, we assign some task, like a task that requires nonlinearity in memory to solve. And because we are only adjusting this linear and static readout, if this system can emulate some function that requires nonlinearity in memory, then it means that this arm part is positively contributing for this nonlinearity in memory. So we can evaluate the computation power of this soft robotic arm. Okay. So this is a behavior of the octopus arm. So we observed in the first slide. So in this case, we are injecting the random binary input, and we are generating the passive body dynamics of the soft robotic arm. And we are going to use this body dynamics as a reservoir. And here, we are going to implement, at first we are going to implement this multitasking setting. So according to this random binary input, we want to emulate several Boolean functions. And one task is called short-term memory task. So it needs to reproduce the previous input by using this reservoir. The another task is n-bit parity checker. So it should refer to the previous input, and also it needs to transform this input nonlinearly. So we can evaluate the nonlinear capacity of this system. And the important parameter here is that because we are injecting the input physically, we need to assign some physical duration of time for each symbol. Otherwise, this motor will burn out. So we have this kind of tau parameter, tau state. So when you inject this binary state to the motor, we wait till tau state. And then before injecting the next input, we take this value of the sensor as a representative value of the reservoir and use as a computation resource. And this is explanation of the task. So as I explained, we are going to implement two types of task. One is short-term memory. So basically you want to reproduce the previous input by using the current state of the body. And second task is the n-bit parity checker. So you need to refer to the previous input, and also you need to transform non-linearly to successfully implement this n-bit parity checker. So we can evaluate the non-linear processing capability of this arm. Okay. Okay, so this is the example of the task performance. So the readout is already tuned. And as you can see, so this one is the arm behavior, and this one is a binary input. And according to this binary input motor command, these kind of sensory dynamics, these body dynamics are generated, and these sensory time series are generated. And we use this sensory time series as a reservoir. And now we are implementing several Boolean functions. And this n is the parameter for each task. And when you increase the value of n, you require more memory to for this task. And so the black line is a target output, and the red line is the actual system output. And as you can see, when n equal 1 and 2 in the short-term memory task, you can almost completely implement this task. But when you increase this parameter n, the performance gradually decreases. And in the n-bit parity checker case, for the n equal 1 case, the performance is almost completely solved. Performance is very good. But when you increase the value of n, the performance starts to degrade. So although it has some limitation, for some specific Boolean function, it can completely emulate. So we can say that it has some certain amount of computational capability in this Octopus arm. And in this paper, the computational capability of this Octopus arm is investigated in detail by comparing the performance with conventional equal-state network. So by changing this parameter tau, we can induce different types of capacity. So here, the capacity is defined as using this kind of equation. So by checking the mutual information between the target output and the actual output, and by summing up this mutual information along the delay line, we define the capacity. And for each task, we can define the capacity. So for the short-term memory task, we define memory capacity. And for the n-bit parity checker, we define parity checker capacity. Then as you can see, by changing the parameter tau, we can induce different capacity. So for the short-term memory task, when you choose the small value of tau means you run the system very fast. Then you can have the higher memory capacity. Then when you increase the tau, this memory capacity starts to drop and stays at some value. For the n-bit parity checker, which can evaluate the nonlinear computational capability, there is some peak. So when you nicely tune this tau, you can induce high nonlinear computational capability. So it depends on the behavior, the dynamics of the arm. And this at this point is also investigated in detail in this paper. So please check for this paper in detail. Okay, so intuitively, so what does it mean to have memory in this mechanical body? So this is the intuitive explanation. So the task is, so only by checking the current arm shape, can we infer the previous inputs? And as you can see, of course we can. So by checking this, this arm shape, we can infer that, okay, so the motor is coming from this, so it's moving from here to here. And also by checking this arm, current arm state, we can see that because this effect of the actuation propagates through this arm with time delay, we can see that if the tip part is bending like this and this part is bending like this, then we can say that, okay, so by checking this arm, probably the motor moved from here to here. Similarly, by checking this one, we can see that previous input should be like this. So by checking the bend of the arm, we can reproduce what was happening in the motor part. And also, the interesting point is that if we use the rigid body, then we cannot have some information of the previous input because it won't bend. So even if you check the state of the current body, when the body is rigid, then it won't bend. So you cannot infer what was happening previously. But when you use soft body, you can incorporate some previous information to the body. That's the interesting point. And here, this is a recent results from our team that we found that the environmental condition is also very crucial. And we are now checking the common signal induced synchronization of this octopus arm. So please check, for example, this part. So we are now changing the environmental condition. So in the previous case, we were using the tap water. And we are now changing the environmental condition from tap water, seawater, to air. And we found that in the tap water case, in this video, we are now overlaying two different trials with the same input time series. Then as you can see, the behavior is almost the same. Of course, the tip part is a bit not completely the same, but basically in the tap water condition, it shows some reproducible response. But in the air condition, as you can see, it doesn't show the reproducible response. So in the tap water condition, this system shows common signal induced synchronization. So we can implement reliable computation. But when you change the environmental condition to air, then this system does not show common signal induced synchronization. So it doesn't show acoustic property. So we cannot implement computation. So the environmental condition is very important to implement some reservoir computing to this Octopus arm. And this result will be shown in the RoboSoft 2022. And this result was just accepted. And please join this RoboSoft 2022 in April for details. Okay. So so far we checked that this Octopus arm has computation power, certain amount of computation power. So next we want to check whether we can implement closed loop control into this body. So just like the open loop case, we inject motor command and we only adjust this linear readout and generate some output. And this output is fed back as a next input, the motor command. And for the output, we try to implement this kind of oscillatory pattern, the square wave. And this square wave also have this parameter, tau square. So because we don't have an external timer to implement this system, so the system should only refer to this body dynamics and should tell when to switch the output from 1 to 0 or 0 to 1. So it means that by checking only this body dynamics, you need to understand the duration of time. And it depends on the memory capacity of this arm. And it is natural that when we increase the parameter tau square, then because it has a limitation of the memory capacity, the task will become difficult when you increase the tau square. Okay, so let's see the performance. So this is the results. So as you can see, we can successfully embed this closed loop control. The tau square is set to, I cannot see this, it's a 10 right now. Yeah, 10. And here, so this is the system output, red one is system output. According to this system output, the base part rotates. And according to this base part rotation, it generates passive body dynamics. And by using this, you're generating the next motor command. And as you can see, we provided those manual perturbation. Then when it was perturbed, because this arm part is directly used as a reservoir, when you perturb, then the motor command fluctuates, of course. But you stop perturbating, then as you saw, it goes back to the original trajectory. So somehow we can say we can implement some robust closed loop control into the body. And as I explained, there is a specific range for the tau to be implemented. So when you increase the range of tau, you cannot implement closed loop control anymore. So this tau is also dependent on the memory capacity of this Octopus arm. And also this approach can be used to control not only this Octopus arm-like robot, but we can use this framework for this quadruped robot. And in this robot, we made this flexible spine. And this spine is made with silicon. And we embedded many force sensors inside. And also we can, string is embedded in this silicon, and we can deform this spine part by using this pulling motor. And by inducing the deformation of the spine, we generate some locomotion of this robot. And this part, how to deform this spine is controlled by this motor. And in this part, we implemented physical reservoir computing. So with closed loop. So according to this body dynamics with the silicon spine part, we output how to actuate this motor. So we generate the motor command to actuate this motor. And we showed that we can implement multiple gate patterns. And please check this paper for details. Okay. And recently, by using the same framework, we developed eel-like robot, fish robot, and we demonstrated that our approach works successfully in this robot. And also recently, by using flexible sensors, these flexible strain sensors embedded to the wing of the flying robot, we demonstrated that this wing part, wing dynamics, can be used as a natural classifier to classify the wind direction to this bird robot, flying robot. So this wing part acts as a successful reservoir to classify the wind direction. Okay, so this is the summary. So the message is that by incorporating soft materials to the body, we can exploit the soft body as a computational device. And what we are doing here is that we started from the example of the conventional reservoir computing echo state network. And in that case, we had random coupling randomly coupled nonlinear oscillators, nonlinear elements as a reservoir. But when we use this animal body or robotic body as a reservoir, it's not random at all. It has some specific structure. In the animal case, this body morphology is shaped through this evolution. And it means that because it's not random, it has some specific shape. It means that this reservoir has some specific task to be solved. It has some preference, it means. So by using this physical reservoir computing approach, we think that we can ask why this animal has this kind of shape from computation perspective. That's what we are investigating right now. And recently, we showed that the single cell organism can be used as a physical reservoir. And in this case, so the population dynamics of these unicellular system is used as a reservoir, and the input is the temperature. And in this paper, we showed that this system has common signal induced, shows common signal induced synchronization. So it has echo state property. And we have implemented several information processing by using this single cell organism. And there are lots of physical reservoir computer proposed recently. So it started from this liquid brain, water in a bucket example, using this water dynamics as a reservoir. And recently there are approaches using the real cultured neural network as a reservoir. And also today I showed the example from soft robots. And this concept is also applied in neuromorphic device research. And there are 4 major approaches. First one is photonic reservoir. So they use laser dynamics as a reservoir, and they can implement extremely high-speed computation. In the second example, it's called immaterial reservoir. So there are lots of choices like atomic switch network or carbon nanotube, or these organic materials can be used as a reservoir. And another third example is a spintronics reservoir. So they use spin torque oscillator as a reservoir. And interesting point is that spintronics has some is robust to radioactive environment. So we assume that we can use this system for example, some information processing in the external space. And also finally, there's a physical reservoir called quantum reservoir using quantum many-body system as a reservoir. And in this framework, we can implement quantum tasks because we are using quantum dynamics directly as a reservoir. Okay. And these examples can be found in this book. And with Professor Ingo Fischer, I have published this book. So if you are interested, please check this book. Okay, so finally, I would like to acknowledge all the collaborators and RC seminar group members. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Very interesting talk. There was a question. So before we start with the question, there was one question during your talk, I think, when you were talking about the Octopus arm, which is in the chat. So I can read you the questions if you want. It was like, how much the performance is degraded by the delay in the input, which was like, if theta is not exactly the same as the X. So maybe like Homero might precise.
Is this about the Octopus arm?
I think like, is Homero still there? Yeah.
Yeah. I think maybe you answered it later. It's just that in your video, like,
yeah, you don't want to interrupt the flow.
can you hear me?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, so you were giving like this binary input, but then like it takes some time until the arm will actually respond, right? And I was wondering like how much it depends on that delay. But I think later you showed this figure that the capacity decreases when the delay is bigger, right? I think you already answered.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so that property is directly connected to this memory capacity of this system.
Okay, but then I believe that if it's too short, then it might start. Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean
I think so.
So it might start be bad because it's like a rigid body, right? It depends. There's like the time delay, but also like how rigid it is, right?
Yeah, exactly. I agree. Cool. Yeah.
So we have time for
question.
Two more questions.
Why do you think?
Yes,
Go.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. So you showed that there was this memory kernel basically in your 2014 paper, where there's
yes.
And then you say it stops decaying at some point. Why do you think that is?
Stop what?
It stops decaying at some point. So it goes down.
So that's I think that's because of the setting of this task, I think. So for example, but I'm not sure precisely. So maybe you're talking about this, should I say?
Yeah, that's that one.
That plot, right?
Yeah, the one. Yeah, that guy.
Wait. This one, right? Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think, so when you increase tau, it means that it goes toward the base, toward the end, for example, and the transient dynamics starts to vanish.
Oh, is it bouncing?
I don't think it's bouncing, but maybe because, for example, if the arm is in the end, then at least you can, okay, I got it. So at least you can infer that right now, the current input was, for example, when the current input was 0 or 1, and if the arm is in the, for example, in the end of this, what should I say? So if it reaches toward the end, then you can infer that because it is bending a little bit, you can tell that by checking this arm, right now, this arm is now in the right-hand side. So by checking this arm, you can say that at least the current input was, for example, 1. So maybe it shows this kind of capacity. Can you understand?
Not quite, but I don't know if that's my fault. It's probably my fault more than yours.
No, I think one way to describe this is like, if the memory is at 1, right? If the tau is really long, right, and it's just hanging on one side, bent in that direction, then it's easy to remember it 1 step ago because, well, there it is. It's bent. It's bent in this direction. So last step it was bent like this. So that's why I think asymptotes to 1, right?
Yes, that's right. So it's basically, it's not a memory effect, but it's like when you stay at one hand side, then because it has some natural bend, you can tell arm is now in the right hand side. So you can tell what input was provided at the current time step. Yeah.
Does that depend on viscosity of the medium? So you have 2 input. You have the robotic arm that can be driven, right? But then you also have, you also have the medium. So the response to the medium or the viscosity of the medium. how does the viscosity medium affect tau?
Yeah, that's affect. Yeah, but this one partially answers to your question. So so we changed the environmental condition. So in the previous case, we used tap water environment, but in this case, we just use the air condition. So there's no water. So by changing the environmental condition, the behavior of the arm changes. And in the tap water condition, it shows echo-state property. But in the air condition, it does not. So you cannot use this arm as a computational resource in the air condition.
So then is increase in viscosity then of the media, because tap would be high viscosity. So what if you continue increasing the viscosity? Do you increase the capacity of?
Yeah, that's interesting. But yeah, maybe we can say that, yeah. But I'm not sure. We need to test what happens. Yeah, but from this example, I think we can say that, yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Do we have time for one more question? Anyone?
Hi.
Hi.
Quick question.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I'm keen to know. I was just diving into this. This is new to me. What is the training procedure that you find most valuable in setting the weights for the readout weights?
Again, please. I'm sorry. Again.
So what algorithms do you use for your training procedure for the readout weights?
Yes. So in this example, we use ridge regression.
Linear regression?
Yeah.
Okay.
Similar to linear regression, yes.
Okay.
But
simple.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry, there was a comment in the.
Ridge regression, he said.
Yes. So thank you again. It was a very cool talk. So if you have any questions, please contact him directly if you have further questions, and don't forget to check his book.
Thank you very much.
So thank you again, Kohei, and I'll send you the link of the talk soon. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.